English is not my first language.
English is not my first language.
Uh, Double Lift. You've played since 2011, and you've gone from playing like in front of 50 fans to a sold-out 15,000 seat arena. So, can you talk about a little the evolution of esports and how it kind of felt, seeing it go from, small rooms to gigantic arenas?
Whoa. When let me move this a little bit further away. When this was my very first LAN was actually DreamHack in Sweden, and it was like in a crowd of maybe like 50 fans max. So I guess I have the advantage of I kind of evolved with League Esports. So as it got bigger and bigger, I was playing in front of slightly larger and larger crowds, and then it's kind of easier that way to swallow. It's like, oh, it's twice as big as last time, twice as big as it was last time. But I could definitely imagine for like Vincent, who's never played in front of a crowd before, it's like a huge difference. So for me, it was pretty natural.
Bjergsen, the change from TSM from spring to summer was huge, absolutely phenomenal. Can you tell me a little bit more about that? Was it the meta, or did you guys just adapt really well to the new changes?
I don't think it was as much game related. I think it was more so on the playoffs in spring. We started to learn how it was to play with each other as teammates and like players rather than the meta or something about the game. So when we brought in Biofrost, I think the four of us, we had already gotten accustomed to playing with each other, and we had to step up even more to bring in a new player completely. So I think bringing in a new player taught us a lot about each other, and I think just over that spring playoffs where we played like 10, 12 hours a day in practice with each other, we got really close and we learned how to play as a team.
Got a question for Hanser. We saw you and Impact going really back and forth in this series, kind of like taking over game one for Impact, and you took over game two in a lot of ways and played really well. What was it like facing him in this match?
I definitely think he stepped it up for the series, and I feel like I kind of underperformed a lot, and he got like the better of me in most of the lanes. But it's definitely an honor to go play against like a world champion, and he's definitely one of the best top laners in NA right now. So it was just like a really close match, and I enjoyed playing against him.
Sven Skarin, we saw during the split, Gragas and Rek'Sai being priority picks. In this series, we saw Cloud9 bust out the Zac. What was your reaction to that, playing against that? Can you sort of walk us through that?
Okay, so when we scrimed C9, we knew they were playing like Zac and Olaf, and I don't know, we kind of always banned it in scrims because, at least for me, I felt like it was a waste of practice because no one is ever going to play this champion on stage because it's pretty bad. So I was kind of surprised that he had the balls to pick it because I just think it's like a troll champion. But my mid laner think it's OP because he's so good at ganking mid.
Yeah, die to the gank. Zac is OP at ganking mid.
Biofrost. I talked to Afremu last week, and he said that Doublelift is a really good teacher, that he's really good working with fresh support. So can you talk a little bit about your relationship with Doublelift and how he's helped you in your first season?
Peter definitely has helped me a lot. We constantly talk about matchups, and I think it's really helped over the season. So, of course, we're still working out on some things, but I think we've come a long way since day one.
I have a question for Bjergsen. I'm curious about the player's perspective on the 6.15 patch, which would seem to favor strong laners, which even in one of the pregame interviews you said you feel your team is, strong laners, which is why I found it a little bit interesting to hear, obviously your owner come out and say that the patch timing was not opportune. Was that your feeling as well, or did you feel like the not having to have lane swaps and getting to play a bit more of a traditional game would play into your strengths?
I mean, the patch time was suboptimal, but overall, I think that for me, it's a lot easier to play in a constant match lane because in the 1v2, it's largely, in our team, it's largely led by Doublelift and Hanser. And when we're always in match lanes, it's let me have more kind of control over the game. But for me, I think the patch was, for me, I think it was okay because for the fans and even for us watching the games, I think the games are a lot more exciting. They're a lot more bloody and they're easier to follow. For us, adapting to the new patch it was quite a challenge at first because a lot of stuff changed. You can take different jungle routes, and we had to kind of relearn playing 2v2 every single game. And he went through, playing strong laners to playing kind of for the team comp, and it was just about finding a middle where, you still want your comp to be good, but you want to have strong lanes because you can't avoid the lane swap. So I think some people thought that it was going to be super dominant laners like Caitlyn, Nami, bottom, and all this stuff, but people also figured out that you can play smart and, safe and have a strong team comp. So.
Hello. There we go. This question's for Doublelift. Do you guys have plans for a boot camp after this? Where are you guys going to go? What are you going to do? What's happening before Worlds?
We're gonna take a small break after winning this finals, and then because we're getting complacent, and then we're gonna boot camp in Korea for two weeks. Then we're gonna come back to adjust to jet lag and stuff, and then Worlds will start. So Korea's I think you're already booked, right? Or I don't know. I hope they're already booked. Save money.
I have a question for Svenskeren. It seemed like in the 3 wins today, you really shut down Meteos' impact on the game. What was your approach to making sure he couldn't really set the tone of the game, especially early on?
I don't really think I shut him down. It was like he still got a lot of ganks off, even though I think we kind of didn't respect the ganks. Like in the SAC game, we died a lot, and when he played Rexa in the last game, he ganked a lot, and I didn't really gank, so I don't really think that I shut him down.
I have a question for Parth. So this is the second series in this weekend where one team has kind of favored Rek'Sai in the draft over Vlad, and the other team has picked Vlad, and usually the Vlad team comes out on top. Could you kind of explain, or do you have any suspicions why C9 doesn't really have Vlad priority, either in their semifinal games or in the games today?
Wait, why C9 didn't have a Vlad priority?
Why you might suspect that C9's lack of Vlad priority may be I guess a problem, or I guess maybe kind of explain the reason why you guys have Vlad priority.
I don't know why they don't have a Vlad priority. It's a super strong champion, and you just need to pick it in the right cases. And it's bad against certain champions, but good into a lot of team comps. So yeah, we like it because it's strong, and I don't know why they don't.
This question's for Weldon. TSM had a very rough split recently, going from 6 to being finalists. Now they've had a very dominant summer split, really turned things around. Great priority on teamwork, communication. How do you plan on keeping that going through Worlds into the future without causing burnout and keeping everyone happy, healthy, sane?
Yeah, I think our approach to burnout this split has been to try to find the edge between maximum possible effort and actual injury or burnout as they call it. And for that, we use things like sleep trackers and other ways of gauging their physical and physiological and psychological health. And so twice during the split, we got up to the edge and then pull back. So it's really important to time your breaks at optimal times for pulling back from that burnout and rest and recovery, active recovery, hopefully, so you don't lose the things you trained, and then to pull back in it all in. So I'm blessed to be working with guys who believe in all in effort. So when I ask them to go all in, they just spend so much of their focus and energy on the game, and then it's actually hard to get them to dial it down. So that's mostly what I'm doing is on the vacation time, we try to dial it back a little bit, and I try to get them to rest. And I think that's what we're doing over the next few days, is that we pushed really hard through this playoffs for the adaptation that we saw on stage today, and we need to dial it back and have really intentional kind of break time in order to come in really fresh when we hit Korea. And I think that in answer to your question, how do you make it more effective when you're recovering, it's about intention. So we really celebrated our like time off, even if it was a half-day break, or even if it was just like one night. It's really important to like hold that up and say like this is what we get after a week of hard training, or 2 weeks or 3 weeks, and yeah, I think that we managed to average like about 1 day off a month, the split, and I think that that's far above what any other team was willing to put out, and I think that it's like the accolades all go to these guys for being able to like put that grind in, and also for actually to be able to dial it back on those days off and fully active recovery. So yeah.
This one's for Peter. You talked in your post-game interview about the crowd and how like loud and intense it was. Did you like how much of an impact did the crowd have on the games today? Like what?
Oh, actually, I didn't even get to finish my joke on stage, but I canceled one of my Jhin ultis where I would have got a quad kill in game 2, and I was pretty tilted. And then I was gonna blame the crowd because they're so loud, but actually it was just my bad. So maybe that came off wrong. I actually think the crowd is super awesome. They're crazy, crazy loud and energetic, and I could just kind of like feel the energy and vibration in the game. I feel like we all kind of like made a lot of uncharacteristic mistakes, but that's just what happens when you play on LAN. So yeah.
So I actually have a question for Double Lift. You played Lucian before playoffs 21 times in a meta that is heavily on utility 80 carries.
Pocket pick.
Let's go.
Is it just a pocket pick, or was there something more to that?
Well, I think now it's a pocket pick because he's like really unfavorable in the meta. But actually, we just ran out of ADs to play when they banned Sivir and took Jhin. So I mean, sometimes Lucian just pops off, and sometimes he's like a potato. So I think I got pretty lucky one team fight, and I popped off. But the other team fights, I was pretty much useless. It's just a champion I'm really comfortable on, and I feel like I can put a lot of like split push pressure on the enemy team. So yeah, I'm just really good at him, I guess.
So this is for both Bjergsen and Doublelift. I know both of you are the main shot callers for the team. I kind of want to question how you guys have developed shot calling throughout the split, because in prior splits, Bjergsen shot calling didn't work out too well. And so I want to know how the introduction of, I guess, Doublelift came into and caused you guys to be such a good team, both macro-wise and I guess comm-wise.
I think it can come down to like we didn't try to shut either of us up and say like, oh, Doublelift's a shot caller, I'm the shot caller. It was kind of natural, and we took over different parts of the game that we were good at. So Peter, for example, is really good at wave management, side lane pressure, and playing around big objectives like Baron. And previously, I made a lot of calls around Dragon, especially vision control, when this guy needs to group and stop farming the side lane, things like that. So I think we have a pretty good balance of things that we each do. But Peter takes over the majority of like late game and Baron. So I think we just play well off each other. And the difference this split from previous for me is kind of that, I feel like I have teammates that even if I forget to call a certain thing or communicate a certain thing, they're gonna instantly pick it up for me and make sure it gets done.
Yeah, I think everyone's perception of shot calling is really weird because of the olden days, like season 2 when it was like high, and like season 3 with high, and like season 2 with like Reginald and stuff, who are just like authoritarian dictators. But like, actually, what shot calling really is everyone does it. Everyone makes calls. Let's do this. Let's invade the buff. Dennis is calling for invades. Like, Vincent is calling for like vision control around a certain area. Kevin's calling for like resources top lane. Everyone's calling for a certain play. And then what TSM really needed from last split, because Bora didn't do it, was a split second. Just like there's like 5 calls out on the table. Just pick one and then get everyone to do it. So I think for us, I was just like, I'm a pretty impatient person, so I don't like to wait for other people to do it. But everyone on the team is making a lot of calls, and it just so happens like I guess when like 25, 30 minutes comes around, you just need somebody to be like start Baron, because it can be hard when there's 5 people talking.
Bjergsen, we talked a little bit on Twitter about how hard esports players, especially you guys with like 1 day off a month, and you said you really couldn't talk about it because it's 140 characters. Could you just like talk a little bit about how your team works and how much you put into it? Because a lot of people when they look at esports, they like, oh, they practice 3 hours a day, just eat pizza all day. But you guys are like, you have so much to do. So can you talk about that?
I think every team scrims between 6 to 9 hours, probably like 5 to 6 days a week. And it's pretty much, I think the difference between the top teams and the middle pack teams is what you do outside of that time. We scrim on LCS days. We wake up and watch VODs in the morning before scrims. So I think in League, the hard work is that you can always work harder. You can always, have more conversations with your team, theory craft, watch more VODs. You can even schedule more scrims. I just think that I haven't personally found a way where I can improve without just spending more and more time. So I think it kind of all came from Korea, where they would just practice, 15 hours a day. And then our team was like, well, if we want to beat the Koreans, we have to practice just as much. So we pretty much just practice to the point of burnout, like Weldon said, and try to pull it back afterwards. So it's all about trying to optimize those hours.
I have a question for you, Bjergsen, as well. With your international experience in the past and now looking ahead to the World Championships this year, how confident do you feel about not only your team but North America as a region and your ability to represent yourselves internationally? What do you think North America's chances are this year?
It's always tough to say. I personally think that NA is definitely stronger than ever, but you never really know until you actually get up and you play against these international teams. I think that we haven't even shown yet how well we can play. Even today, I was pretty disappointed with how we played, especially the last game. And even against CLG, I thought all our games were close. Or all the games were slow to end. We were sloppy. We weren't confident and just picking the fights and diving them. So I think we personally have a long way to go to be able to beat these top teams, because what they do in scrims, they will pull out on stage, and they have the confidence to do it. And we need to be able to do the same.
I'd like to put this towards Hanser. So the top lane meta has kind of been stuck in like a fairly stale tank setting for a while, but it's reorienting around kind of a tanky DPS, more skill oriented. That being said, who do you look at as your international role models for the position?
In terms of role models, I think like most obvious ones are like Smeb, Sunday. They're just like really good top laners. They like never make huge mistakes, and just like known for getting MVPs a lot because they always play like super well and consistent, and they make like the best plays. I haven't really watched much of other regions. I think Splice's Wonder, he's also a really good top laner. So just like try to pick up things from them and just like watch how they play.
This question is actually for Biofrost. We've seen, the new patch for the playoffs, and we've seen some changes in the bot lane meta, including Braum coming in huge in the last couple of series. Just wondering what you think about the current support meta. Any more changes you might suspect are coming, especially that Braum pick proved to be very powerful throughout both series this weekend.
Yeah, everyone thought that ranged supports would be like the new thing with the bottom lane changes, but usually Karma has been always banned, so the meta usually falls to melee supports. Melee supports are really good at setting up plays and playing dives. I think if bot lane players are really good, they understand how to play safe and avoid jungle ganks. So playing a melee support is a lot better in that scenario because you can survive ganks, you can also set up more plays. So in that sense, it's usually better to play like a tanky support like Braum.
So I've got a question for the bot lane, so Double Lift and Biofrost. You guys are heading into Worlds, so we're going to look at Worlds. What is the bot lane you guys think are going to give you the most trouble, and what bot lane are you guys looking forward to facing against the most?
I think for me, the answer to both questions is the same. I think Royal's bottom lane's really good. Uzi and Mata, because in Korea we scrimmed Royal, and their bottom lane was sick, and they would just always pull off insane 2v2 all-ins and just kill us. So yeah, that was pretty cool, and I think they'll be really hard to play against as well.
Personally, I think Rox's bottom lane is really good, as well as RNG's bottom lane. They both seem really good. I don't know, like in Worlds, all of the bottom lanes seem really good. EDG, RNG, and Rox.
I have a question for Sven. So usually it's a very quite different, or a lot of junglers are split into different people. Like I think there's a very instinctual type of junglers and very like thoughtful types of junglers. What would you classify yourself as? And additionally to that, how exactly do you kind of improve your jungle pathing per se? Is it something that you work on specifically by watching a shitload of VODs, or is it something that you like work with your team or your coach to make sure you get better?
For your first question, I'm not really sure, but for jungle pathings, I think for me, I just learned a lot scrimming Immortals because Rainover is like super good. So just scrimming Immortals and like kind of copying what Rainover does has helped me a lot. So just being like a copycat.
I have a question for.
I think Svenskern is the type of jungler that sees an enemy camp up and he walks in and tries to take it.
I have a question for Dennis as well. With nerfs to Rek'Sai and Gragas on the most recent patch, do you expect them to stay in the meta for Worlds? And if not, who do you expect to maybe replace them in the top tier?
I didn't really play on the solo queue patch because we are just practicing on like an old patch for playoffs, so I'm not really sure. I still expect to see Rek'Sai in the meta because he's just so strong, but probably just a lot more Elise. Like in other regions, Elise is picked a lot already, so Elise is probably going to be good, in Italy maybe.
All right, guys, we got time for 3 more questions. Tim's taking one of them, so if anyone else wants to ask him now.
I'll give this question to Doublelift, I guess. Looking at the gauntlet coming up, so we've got some teams competing in that. What are your expectations for who you think might come out of that, and how strong you think that might look for them?
Well, now that this is all over, I can say that I really hope Immortals loses because they really, really wanted us to lose and they wouldn't scrim us. So we had like pretty low practice coming into the finals, which was really, I mean, like, it does make sense. Like they want us to lose because I think they didn't want to play Cloud9 in the gauntlet. So I still thought that was a pretty scummy thing to do, which is just like intentionally blockade us scrimming. So I really hope they lose. I also think Cloud9 is pretty good and they should be able to beat Immortals again. So yeah, I reckon that the 3 top teams from NA is just going to be us, CLG, and Cloud9.
This is for Weldon. Right over here. Back. Hey, man. About 6 months ago, when you were working part-time with TSM, this was like when you were only with them for like a week, you said even then that they were the most like passionate, try-hard group of guys you've ever met in your entire life. Now that you've worked with them for an entire split, can you just talk about how after, winning the championship, coming back from losing last season's finals, their progression, and what do you think of them?
It's a really broad question. I guess the best comparison I can do is to the athletes that I've coached, like traditionally, and the athletes that we see like on the international stage in terms of like Olympic athletes and people like Kobe Bryant, who've had these long careers. And I've had the opportunity to work on the national team in Finland and see like swimmers like push themselves through a set, get to the end, climb out of the pool and vomit, and then like climb back in and do another set because that's how hard you have to push your body in order to cause the kind of cellular adaptation you need to like compete on the world stage. And I see from these people sitting beside me that they push themselves, they show up every single day with enough intensity and with enough time logged to not only compete with the kind of sacrifice that we see coming out of Olympians and out of like people with really long professional careers, but enough to actually injure themselves in terms of not just like repetitive stress injuries, because we do pretty good with that nowadays, but just like through force and tiredness, on their brains and on their bodies. And then when I ask them to do things like make sure that they stay physically fit and work out so they can go even harder, they do that. And I think that like you've seen that with Svenskeren and Vincent now, doing the physical training. And so my impression of them has only improved throughout the split as I've seen the kind of dedication that they're able to bring. And I took a very like hands-off approach. I'm not the kind of coach that like is like regimented and like there with a whip trying to whip people. I try to show them what is possible to achieve and say like, if you have the drive, like this is what's possible, and I will assist you and I will help you in any way that I can. But it's up to them to pull the trigger, and they do it every single morning when they get up and they go to the gym, and every single night when I leave the team house and they're like all studying VODs into the night. So it's very impressive to watch. very motivating to me personally too.
This question is for Double Lift and Biofrost. With the patch changes, we've seen really bloody really bloody games, a lot of action in the bot lane, and I'm wondering how these changes to pacing affects your mentality. Do you feel more burned out after being on guard and going through these fights, or is it more exciting to play through? Just wondering how that affects your mindset and your ability to play through a series.
I think 2v1 is pretty much a snooze fest. So it does take a lot less mental energy to play 2v1 because it's basically just playing versus towers and jungle creeps. So it doesn't change much game to game. You kind of go down a flowchart. And yeah, I guess as you saw, the first game was like a big wake up call for us. And then the next 3 games we were playing really focused and it was taking a lot of like, energy to play 2v2. But really, I think the biggest thing about match lanes is that you can't make any excuses when you die anymore. Like, it's match lanes every game. If you get ganked, it's because you're playing too aggressive and you weren't respecting the jungler. If you die 2v2, it's because you're bad. So like, there's some sort of like, there's always a responsibility on the bottom lane to step up and play better and better and better, as opposed to 2v1 where it's just like, oh, can I have hit the tower one more time? Maybe, but it's not that important. So yeah, like I just think this patch change was a big step up for me and Vincent. We've had to talk a lot more about our matchups and just put a lot more time into the game.
Yeah, what Double Lift said is definitely true. For a lot of 2v2 matchups, you have to constantly talk about it, and a lot of it also revolves around the jungler. I think a big part of bot lane now is knowing where their jungler is, tracking where the jungler is, and being able to play off of that. Of course, 2v2 is also extremely important, and as Double Lift said, game 1 wasn't too hot, so yeah, we had to pick it up in the other 3 games.
All right, that was the last question. Guys, if you mind posing with your trophy for photos real quick, and we'll wrap it up. Thank you so much.
Thanks, guys.